Hello and welcome back to Book Nerd TV. Today we're going to discuss the books that I checked out recently from my local library, and we'll talk about some of the books that I purchased. As I've mentioned before, my local library does a monthly book sale. I think it's like first or second week in the month. They will put some of the books that they have pulled from their shelves and sell them. I think the hardbacks are $1. Trade paperbacks are maybe 75 cents. Regular mass market paperbacks are maybe 50 cents, maybe somewhere along in there. And while I am a huge lover of nonfiction, for whatever reason recently, I've been picking out mostly fiction books from the library. Now, I think part of the reason is because when I go to my local library, the nonfiction section is already sort of picked over, and kind of what's remaining really doesn't float my boat, while there's enough fiction left for me to sort of find something that I might be interested in or think might be interesting. And that's why recently I think I've ended up with so many fiction books from the library. It's just selection, timing, all of that is a thing. And that's not a critique of the service whatsoever. That is just one of those things that can happen. The timing and the selection matter when you patronize a public library. And I think another reason that I'm leaning more toward the fiction end of the spectrum is that I'm reading this nonfiction book by Harriet Washington called Medical Apartheid, and it's one of her backlist books from, 10, 12 years ago. So I'm reading that book electronically, and the subject matter of the book is anger-inducing and painful. I realize it's probably best for me to just sort of put the book down or put the tablet down since it's an ebook. Leave that for a while and revisit it when I've sort of processed the things that I've read and the history that she's relating within the text. It's something. It's something. Nevertheless, I have been checking out books from the local library, and I have a pile, and I do mean pile, of them to share with you. Not all checked out. Some of them are ones that I bought at the library sale, which is like one of my favorite things. And I realize you really have to get there early to get the really good selection. Again, timing, selection. So it matters even when they're selling some of their older selections from their stacks. So timing, selection. The first book I'm reading is Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. This is a book that I picked up literally yesterday. It seems to be a very easy read, and I just started reading it maybe an hour or so ago. I just thought, hey, let me pick this up and see what it's like, because I've never read anything by Woodson before. And even though people can say or tell you how much they enjoy an author, it doesn't mean that you're going to. But so far, and I am a mere 22 pages into the book, but already I like the lyrical or poetic tone to her writing. I'm loving the fact that she's referencing a Prince song in the very beginning of the story, because of course I'm a huge Prince fan, so there you go. Of course, it goes without saying that sort of the reference that she has about Prince is an easy way to draw me personally into the story. I'm going to read a little more since you've sort of already drawn me in, referencing a Prince song. You don't want to hear any of this, but at any rate, so far, so good with Jacqueline Woodson's Red at the Bone. The next book that I checked out is by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Anna Waterhouse. And yes, it's that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the NBA legend. So when I saw this, and it's a nice cover, I'm a sucker for a pretty cover. I think all of us are suckers for pretty covers. And I saw his name, I thought, wait, what? What's happening? It's a novel. So, and it's Sherlock Holmes. I had no idea. So I picked it up, read synopsis, and thought, okay, this might be pretty interesting. And really the premise is, and I'm going to put this book down before it falls out of my hand. So the premise is that a young Sherlock Holmes, he's about 19 years old or so, is just starting out on his career as an investigator or detective. And Sherlock Holmes is being supported financially by his older brother, Mycroft. And if I'm not mistaken, it has been mentioned in some of the books by Conan Doyle and certainly other iterations of Sherlock Holmes that Mycroft is as smart, if not smarter, as observant, if not more observant than Sherlock Holmes. However, Mycroft uses his powers of deduction, his powers of observation for England. He works for the government. Well, I guess technically he works for the Queen. And so that's some of the setup, some of the world building that we get as we move into this book, Mycroft and Sherlock, The Empty Birdcage. I would say that this book is engaging enough that I may actually read the other two books. I happen to like mysteries. Two, I grew up reading some Sherlock Holmes, some Agatha Christie, so mysteries set in Victorian England seem to be something that I always find a reason to want to read. Oh, so what I should say is that within the book, so with Abdul-Jabbar writing the book, of course, he brings a little more diversity into the telling of the story. The gentleman that serves as Mycroft's version of Dr. Watson is called Cyrus Holmes, and he is an African American, if I'm not mistaken, who assists Mycroft in his investigations and his gallivanting across Europe to solve problems for the crown, prevent problems for the crown, create problems for other countries due to the crown. And so now that I'm about a good 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way through the book, I'm actually enjoying the book, enjoying the mystery, and I will likely go back and pick up the first two books in this series. Okay, on to the books I purchased. So the first book that we'll discuss is The Lord of Castle Black by Stephen Brust. It's swords, dragon princes, magical orbs, your typical farcical high fantasy book that I tend to like these kinds of things. I am a fan of Terry Pratchett, and so reading the synopsis put me in mind of Terry Pratchett, so I thought I would give it a try because, sometimes you take a chance. It was only $1, so, how bad could it be? The next book is The Fresco by Sherry S. Tepper, and it is, according to the synopsis, basically a book about first contact, and the person that is contacted is a bookstore owner, which of course made me think, well, bookstore owner. I don't believe I've read anything by Sherry S. Tepper. I know I've seen her name before on various and sundry books, but I've never picked up one, and so I thought I'd give this one a try because you never know. You never know what lies behind the cover, right? The next book is Bridget Jones's Diary. I don't think I have to do very much explanation at all about this book. If you've not read the book, you may have seen the movie. I enjoyed the movie, but since I enjoyed the movie so much, I said, well, let me give the actual book a try. Usually, the book is much better than the movie, so we'll see if that holds true for Bridget Jones's Diary. The next book I purchased is Saving Fish from Drowning, and it's by Amy Tan. I'm not really very sure what this book is about. I just know that Amy Tan is the author. I, of course, enjoyed Joy Luck Club many years ago when I first read it. I also read Kitchen God's Wife by Amy Tan, which I also enjoyed. This book intrigued me enough to pick it up. Again, it was only $1, so again, how far wrong can you go? So, Amy Tan, Saving Fish from Drowning. The next book I purchased is Mesmerized by Allison Winter. Mesmerized is about the phenomenon of mesmerization, if that's the correct word or a word at all, but how mesmerization or being mesmerized in Victorian England sort of took over, became this huge phenomenon, and people, doctors, mesmerists, use this technique to supposedly cure diseases, heal people, all of these kinds of things. I mean, it was complete quackery, of course, but for a brief moment, mesmerization took over the Victorian world. Not only did mesmerization take over in Victorian England, it took over in parts of Europe. It even came here to the United States. And believe it or not, mesmerization, or the phenomenon of being mesmerized, started from a person named Franz Anton Mesmer. Who knew? The next book I purchased is Biography of Abraham Lincoln, and I'm I enjoy reading books about Lincoln. I don't even know why. It's just something that interests me. He appeared to be a very complex person, and his legacy is an interesting one, especially as biographers do less sort of deification and Santa Clausification of Lincoln, and they tell you more about who he was as a person. And he was a complex person, he was a complex president. He had motives and agendas just like everyone else, and his views on slavery evolved over time. His views on the equality of enslaved Africans in America maybe didn't evolve as much. So I've enjoyed most of the books that I've read about Lincoln. Again, for me, the high bar is still Team of Rivals. Again, if you have not read that book, why are you waiting? Just get the book and read it. The last book of the purchasing frenzy, apparently, that I was on when I was buying all these books is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I've not read anything by Donna Tartt before, and she is a fellow Mississippian. When I saw this book, I thought, well, let me go ahead and grab this one up before anybody else gets a chance. I'm not sure that I'm going to like this book, but this is not a book that I would normally pick up and read. So the fact that it was just $1 makes me a little more adventurous and a little more open to seeing what the book may bring to me. I may end up loving it for all I know. I have no idea. I just know that usually The Goldfinch is not a book that I would pick up because it's just not something that I'm normally drawn to. But things change as always, and so we'll see. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like. Of course, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. If you'd like to be notified when I publish a new video, go ahead and hit the notification bell. And remember, no matter if you buy far too many books from a library book sale or whatever else you may have to do within your day, there is always time to read. Thank you so much.